Okay, everybody. Here we are. Janice, they've showed up in droves to watch you today.
Oh, really? I'm very, very flattered. I mean, I'm honored and I don't know why. It's a beautiful day outside. You could be outside walking, but
Yes,
I'm
but
honored that everyone's here. I am.
it's great to have everybody here and Happy New Year, though January is almost done, but it is great to have all of you out there and there you go,
Mhm.
that way,
Yeah.
here. Yeah, right there. There we go. There we are. It's going to be really, really, I think, a really great broadcast that we've got going on today. So it looks like everyone is here and jumping on and saying hello from all over the place. So
That's great.
we are going to have a really, I think, a really fun project for us today. Before we get into it, though, you guys, I want to say hello to Geeta, who is moderating across the miles. She's going to toss some links over in YouTube as well as Facebook. So thank you so
Oh,
much for that, always,
thank
Geeta.
you, Gita.
And just to remind everybody, don't forget that you can find all things beadshop.com all over the internet, including our Instagram page at beadshop.com. You can give us a follow over there on our Insta. You can join us over on the bead table at Facebook. And please, when you go and join our bead table group, if you would make sure to answer every single one of those questions that is posed to you so I can make sure that it's you and not some random person jumping on, as well as you can join us on our YouTube channel. Give us a like and a subscribe so you don't miss any content from beadshop.com. And of course, especially today with Janice's amazing project, she's got three
Mhm.
versions that we're going to look at. You can find all of the information on the project and the products from today's broadcast right on our website at beadshop.com. And there's project maps, there's all kinds of stuff. So, all of that info, and Janice did a great handout about malas as well that's linked up there also. So, that being said, I wanted to start off before we even look at these projects, and I know I've mentioned it earlier, Janice, but this year starts our 40th
40.
year in business. And what I'd love to do, I always put you on the spot on these things. What I'd love to do, the anniversary is actually in April, I
Mhm.
think,
Mhm.
correct? Maybe
Yeah.
we'll have a broadcast just dedicated to our bead shop history, which would be fun.
Oh, I'd love to do it. And we usually the anniversary date, although I'm not really sure it was on my mother's birthday, but we use her birthday, Lydia's birthday, as the benchmark for when the year begins and ends. And so, yeah, 40 years.
40.
Yeah,
Uh,
unbelievable. Yeah.
yeah, 40 years, many of those years as a brick and mortar in
Mhm.
Palo Alto and the surrounding areas. At our height, I believe we had 4 or 5 locations, which was
It
crazy.
was
And
5.
then
Yeah.
5, yeah. And then we went to brick and mortar, and we've been online since I believe 1996. I
Yeah.
think at the very onset
Yeah.
of the internet world. And now specifically just online and worldwide. So
Yeah.
congratulations to you.
To
Um,
us. To
that's
us.
right.
To all
To our
of us.
40
Yes.
years
Yeah.
of amazingness. So I just wanted to say that while everyone could see your bright and shining beady face. So
Thanks,
anyway.
Kate.
Um I'm going to go ahead and put my demo camera into the stream here.
Okay.
And let's take a look here at what I've got in front of me. You can see I've got a little bit of a work in progress here. So let's talk a little bit, Janice. I'm going to put your two finished samples
Mhm.
at the fore here. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about what kind of moved you to do the malas, a little bit of maybe your design inspiration, and then we'll get into it.
Okay. Well, it turns out that I think about malas annually at the beginning of the year or right before the beginning of the year because it's like, oh, I'm going to make a resolution to not eat potatoes or something. I think having a mala and choosing to meditate or to make resolutions to be calmer, to be more thoughtful, um, they all go hand in hand, literally, with malas. And
Hmm.
so I like to think and make malas at the beginning of the year. It just makes sense to me. What inspired me was all the beads that you chose from India that you ordered and worked directly with the bead makers to get the carnelian and the lapis and the picture jasper and we when we talked about it, I said these just belong in malas, and so that's how this project started. You can make a mala and never use it to meditate. It's you can use the design and just make necklaces. Um, a mala traditionally has 108 beads that as you whether it's you're closing your eyes or you're riding in a bus and you have them, in your pocket or something, you usually come up with some kind of a mantra or a saying or a word. It does not have to have religious meaning. Um, and whatever your resolution is, you go along one bead at a time. And some malas have marker beads. Those are, in this case, the ovals, which give you an idea how far along you are. Um, maybe I know that when I first, I'm not a very good meditator. In fact, when I went to Berkeley, it was the only class I failed was meditation. I got an F in it. And that was because the instructor lost my journal, although I turned it in, he lost it. Um, this is a
That
true
sounds like a
story.
good story.
I did. I got an F in meditation. Um, but you can make a mala without markers. You could make it all one bead. You can make it multiple beads, different colors, different sizes. I think the important thing about a mala, did I get glue in that? I think
No,
the
no,
important
I
thing
got it.
about a mala is that the beads feel good to you.
Hmm.
When you touch
Definitely.
them, that's the purpose, is that,
Hmm.
as you go along and you're feeling one beat at a time, that you like the feel, that it's something you look forward to doing. Um,
Yeah.
and then there's usually what's called a guru bead, which is a three hole bead, and then it also comes with like a triangle or tower bead. But they're not used now as often as they used to be. They're not as I mean as popular, but you can still use them. They're two separate
Hmm.
beads that go into um, like a tassel or a disc or something like that. Um,
Hmm.
and then I added the extra bead at the back, the metal bead, which was all my choice, just so I'd know where the halfway point was. but it's not
Hmm.
part of the 108 beads. It's an extra bead.
Yeah.
So,
It's really a pretty, I love the colors, the really saturated colors
mm,
that you use, Janice, and the tassels. I've put the tassels out so everybody can see them. You guys know that we have made tassels on this broadcast before, and we're actually looking, I'm working with one of our vendors to bring in some fresh tassels that are going to be just made for us, which is really very exciting.
well, you're
Um,
actually designing them, aren't you? Aren't you working with them?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, so they'll
Yes.
just be Beadshop tassels.
Yes, exactly. So I'm really excited to see the results of those. So hopefully we'll have those soon, soon as in the next 6 months. But
Yeah,
um, the thing about these are these for you guys, so you can actually, pardon my reach here as I reach across the screen,
they
but
should
just
be
so you
five
can see,
inches, about 5 inches. Yeah.
yeah, about 5 inches here for
Hmm.
these tassels. And they have this really cool Chinese button knot here
Hmm.
at the top, and they have a nice stiff closure here. So they're very, very durable. Now, I know, Janice, you've been talking about how great an earring these would make.
Yes.
I have one of our discs here, or
Yeah.
you can certainly just make one of the pendants. And if you're doing an earring and you don't want quite a shoulder duster, you could cut these down
Hmm.
just a little bit to do that. So we sell them in pairs. So when you get them, they're going to be two to a bag like this. So, and these are a little bit of a limited quantity,
Hmm.
um, but we hope to be able to have a steady stream of these guys in stock. But they're
Hmm.
really very beautiful. We just love these. The other new things that we've gotten in for these projects, and Janice, you mentioned it, are these long strands of 6 millimeter beads, okay,
Right.
like this. And the 6 mils, we have the carnelian, the lapis, we have this really beautiful amethyst, and I don't have it here because I didn't grab one to bring me, but we also have a really beautiful clear quartz crystal that we
Hmm.
also love.
Hmm.
Um, the thing about these beads, and Janice touched on it, we've been working with a vendor who we have been working with for years and years and years. And now the second generation of the kids are running this business now. And it's really very exciting. These stones are not out of China, they're out of India. So the difference between stones that are cut in China and stones that are cut in India are very different. In India, stones are really still hand cut, a lot of them, and hand drilled, not drilled by machine. So one of the things, and you'll see this, it depends on the material of the beads as well, but especially in those quartz crystal ones, Janice, I know I sent you
Hmm.
those. Sometimes the hole in the beads, depending on how tough the material is, here's the hole of the bead, right? Here's the bead itself. And then the drill comes in, and the drill is, drill shaped, right? It's a cone. So they just drill it from one side. So you'll notice sometimes that the hole on one side of the bead is larger, and then on the other side of the bead is thinner. And it just depends on the material. Sometimes you don't notice, like these lapis, you don't notice, but on those crystal quartz, you might notice that.
Hmm.
So, Janice, you're going to talk a little bit about thread selection and how you approach beads like this with your thread selection.
Hmm.
But these, beads and gemstones from India have a long, long history, thousands of years of knowledge and stone cutting done by families for centuries. So we're
Hmm.
real excited. I'm going to just flash this across the screen. Those are coming at you a little bit later. Some we've restocked, and then you'll see some more of those go into stock this weekend. And the cool thing about them, I'll show you these here, is these 8-inch strands are here. And the way that these are doing, they've done it with two tassels on the end, so you could use those tassels. And then they have the type of bead. This happens to be tiger eye, and this is also a 6 millimeter round. So you'll see these if you go into our semi-precious section. Drea is also highlighting them this weekend in the newsletter. So that starts. So that's a little bit about what these gemstones are all about. So Janice, you
Mhm.
also sent what I love when Janice does a project. And I'm going to try, Janice, if you don't mind, I was going to scan these so that everybody can benefit from your words. I don't know if that's okay with you or
Oh,
not,
that's
but
fine. I hope I didn't, like I didn't write anything crazy or
no, I don't think
out or
so.
anything.
I'll
I
look
just,
through it again.
yeah,
But what
yeah,
I love is, your notes here and all of your visuals, so, you can
sure.
communicate. It has some great uh, info about how to do these charms over here
Hmm.
and how to do this ending, and also this the side view of this macrame here. Now, I
Okay.
think maybe the place to start with this is this one. You have used some glue, and you've sent this one to use, this one that has the, let me get a little closer here. This is the adventuring disc, and then this little jade piece that you put on the front here. Um, we're going to do that same thing. You can see here it is with the carnelian, and here it is with the lapis. I'm going to go ahead and glue this jade coin um, to this piece here. And this is, I think, one of the first things that you do, Janice, right?
Well, that's exactly what I did, and I thought I was going to use the aventurine disc and the
Mm-hmm.
coin, and so along with the other 2, I laid out all the stones, decided what was gonna go with what, and then so I glued them for all 3 at the beginning, and it wasn't until I got to this project, that I decided, "No, I don't really like the aventurine that much with it," but I already had the coin glued on, so um, I'm glad that because working remotely, Kate, like this, you sometimes just like, well, I don't have what I need. And so I didn't have
Right,
another coin. So I said, well, I bet Kate can do this when she finishes the necklace, um, the mala in the office or in your
right.
studio now. So yeah, show us. So you basically, you don't need very much glue. Um,
No.
they will adhere to each other for a very long time. And so you just want to make sure that the holes are lined up.
Yeah, so the glue that we're going to use this Zap. And I also have a couple more things that I wanted to share with you that we also have in stock. Um, we have, you can see right on the camera there, we have our really beautiful I Ching coins. So you could glue um, anything. I mean, you could use anything that's disc-like, right? To let me get a little closer here so you guys can see
The
this.
I Ching, Kate, looks really great with the 40 millimeter.
Yeah, it does. I like though, like this
Yeah.
lapis where it has
Yeah.
just it's a little darker. It has a little bit of a hint of that blue. I think looks great. Um, you can,
You're
but it
right
does.
as
I agree.
usual. You're right as usual.
Well, I also like it though on that 40 millimeter. Also,
Hmm.
Janice, you used what we called this resting Buddha charm, which is
Hmm.
beautiful. I also grabbed as I went out the door because I love these and we don't always get them, but this is that carnelian, that little capped bead, and we
Hmm.
carry them in some different colors, some different stones. And I thought that this would also be a
Great.
beautiful addition
Great. Yeah.
um, if you wanted something like this, or if you were going to wear your mala You could also have something hanging down the back, which
Exactly.
would be beautiful as
Yeah.
well. So this is the 30 millimeter disc with the I Ching coin. I just wanted to show you guys how that might look. But here is the jade coin, and I'm actually going to glue it to the picture jasper. Now the pie discs that we carry, again, also handmade here in the 30 millimeter. You can see that the widths, the thickness of these discs all vary somewhat. Okay, this picture jasper one is a little bit thinner. You can see this lapis one is a little bit chunkier. They all work kind of the same way. So let me get the you want to orient the disc however you want it to be. I'm going to have this kind of the maybe the sky and the ground, maybe it's lighter going to darker. That's maybe how I'll use it. Though all the picture jasper discs are going
Look
to
at
be
that.
very, very different.
Wow.
This is a beautiful one too. And then you want to make sure that you've kind of thought about this before you do your gluing, because this zap is going to set up pretty quickly. So I'm going to make sure that my center and my that both centers are lined up when I do this.
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to first I do like a little test run, and I take a look because these discs, they go down in the center a little bit. There's a little bit of a well there. So you don't want to add the disc or the glue down here in that well because it won't adhere. So I just kind of look and I go, okay, that's where it's going to sit, and it does cover that section. So I'm going to kind of hold in my mind where that disc kind of comes up, and I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to open this zap, and like Janice said, we don't need a ton of glue, but you need just enough. Let me make sure that I'm nice and close here so you can see this. So see how I am using my toothpick to just set my glue carefully on my disc, right at where I think that disc is going to sit. So there's no overlap, there's no spillage of that glue. So I've done 4 nice little dots there because remember it's going to spread out. I'm going to take a look. I want this little brown portion to be kind of at the bottom. Maybe I'll place it with my tweezers. I'm going to come in and I'm going to drop it down. I'm going to press it in. I've got just a little bit, it's hard to see, but I've got just a little bit of excess glue there. So I'm going to use my toothpick to take it away and wipe it. Just be calm and breathe through it. But this zap, the cool thing about this zap is that it sets pretty darn quickly. It's a gel, so it's going to hang on to that stone so that it's not going to slide around. So there we go. Whoops, and of course I'm gluing it to my finger. So now I'm just going to set this aside and not even look at it, right? So that'll be ready when we're ready for it. So let's talk, Janice, about how we started and about your thread choices
Sure.
and stuff like that. How does that sound? Is that the right place to
Sure.
start, do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. So beads are not like t-shirts where, if you want a small or medium or large, they're consistently off the factory floor the same size. Beads, especially gemstones that are hand cut, hand drilled, um, they're natural. They're out of the ground, and excuse me, and they won't be all exactly the same. So the first bit of advice I have for anyone who's going to do knotting and even just stringing is that you have more than one size so that you have alternatives before you begin your project. There's nothing worse than, especially with the griffin, because it's a single thread. You're not, you're not adding or subtracting. It's twisted. It's a 2-ply, but it's one thickness. So if you like, you're going to work with amethyst beads and you want to have the purple or amethyst griffin, I would get it in like 2 or 3 sizes. I wouldn't just, even though I've put on this project that it's a size 8 you need, there could be someone, someone out there who gets a strand that has some beads that maybe don't fit so well because of the holes. And so it's really a good idea to have maybe a 6. We're also, some of you will be happy to know we're going to start carrying the 5 and the 7s. Now, for
Yeah, and we're going to start carrying it in this new,
oh,
really
you have it.
beautiful
That's
blue
right.
color.
Isn't that
Mm-hmm.
blue pretty?
Yeah, it's really pretty.
It's like a
And
periwinkle.
so yeah, it's really great. This really nice one. And I think, yeah, we're going to start carrying it in the 5 and the 7. So we've got all of those here. And I think, Janice, what you used to string this on, this was a size 2. Am I correct?
No, it was an 8. That I wrote on the thing, it's not a 2. I wrote on the bag, I just used the card, but it's not, did I
Oh,
cross off the size?
you did, but it looks like to me this is pretty.
No, no, that's the fine weight. So unravel the whole thing. You'll
Okay,
see that that's the fine weight that I used for the macrame, and that
right.
underneath it, Kate, is the griffin in the size 8. See, I
Okay,
crossed
let me
off,
take a. I
what
see
was I?
that. Well, you crossed off the 8. I think it's a. Let me just double check on the project.
Well, then I've made,
Just
if it is a
hang on
size
here.
2, then um, we put the
Hang
wrong thing
on
on the
one
page.
second here.
Yikes.
Hold the phone.
Okay. It's
Well,
I
let's double check it.
Boy, I just can't believe I used a 2.
Let me just double check it. I
Okay.
I don't know.
So this project, for those of you watching, I started it and the thought was Kate could finish it so that everyone could see the macrame and the adding of the disc and how we knot. So what do I have here?
I'm just taking all of this off. And then we're just going to check it. We're going to go through and I'm going to take your advice here. And so when this was strung, so you can see whatever that base strand, let me get back so I can see the camera here. Whatever that base strand is, okay, that's what you have to check and see what fits. So I've got a variety of threads here,
Okay.
including that, just have to find it. So here's our 8.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a 4. I've got a 2. So we're just going to double check and see what is fitting. Okay, so just bear with me here just a second. I'm going to take off the thing here. And so what you say, Janice, in your notes to me is to find the right size griffin. You just want to test them and you want to make sure, as you say, that it fits about 90% of your beads, right? Some may work, some may not.
Well,
And it,
if you actually need all of the beads on the strand, then
mhm.
what you want to do is try and find a different thread. try
A
to,
thread that works with it, right?
yeah,
Exactly.
if you have the luxury of you don't need all the beads,
Right.
then you can pick and choose. But in terms of attrition, I'd love maybe 1 or 2 beads that don't fit. Um, I am sincerely hoping that we put the right size on because
Well, if we didn't,
I
we'll change it. It's
I'm
not
yeah,
the end of the world. So here's my 8, and I'm
mhm,
going to use these very same um, amethysts that you used in that
okay.
project. So let me open those up, and we're going to go ahead and put this on. So I think
So that one
that
didn't work.
8, that
Okay,
one
so
did not. So
try another one.
we're going to try another. And then we'll also try some lapis. But this is, you guys, what you go through
Thanks.
to to figure out what fits, right? So I'm going to drop down to this size 4 right here.
Will you try okay. Um, that's a drastic difference, I have to
Yeah.
say.
See, the 4 is good. So let me just show you. This is what we strung this on here. And sometimes it's hard to remember, right? So here's that 4 right here. And here's that 8 right here.
Wow.
So you can see the size of the bead hole that you're using. I'm going to grab we've got some extra of the lapis. So let's
Okay,
check the
let's look on the
lapis.
lapis.
And I'm going to check the carnelian.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of like the prep, right? You've got to kind of do um, just the prep to see what fits and what doesn't. So here's our carnelian. Let's take a look at that hole size. And that carnelian sails right on.
Okay, well,
Okay.
now what you wanna do is you wanna also put a knot at the very end of that griffin and see if the knot will hold up against the bead hole.
Against the bead, right. And I
Thank
just want to check, I want to check this lapis one too.
okay. I'm just,
Yeah, so the lapis does, it looks like, let me just double check what we put on
right.
for the no, you did it right, Janice. The size 4 is what you used with these guys because the holes were smaller. So you took your own advice. So we're all
What?
good. You used the
Oh,
size 4 griffin.
on the lapis, the project Intervision, it says size 8.
Right, which works. But this is
Okay,
the amethyst that I have here. The amethyst is the size 4 because the holes were smaller.
okay.
So it's good.
And for the carnelian,
Also
I
size 8.
size 8. Okay.
Yep, which all works. So
Okay.
again, checking your just checking those beads and making
Mhm.
sure because like we talked about earlier, the hand cut
Exactly.
beads, they're all a little different. So
Mhm,
this is an actual real world lesson in
mhm.
checking what works. So now you were saying, JP, you wanted to check also to make sure that the knot works, correct? So let
Yeah,
me um,
yeah.
this is
You
something
want
that I also do when you guys know I do a lot of pearl knotting. So, whoops, sorry. There we go. So um, this is let me unravel it. So there's a few questions about the griffin.
mhm.
So the griffin, this is size 8 is a point 0.8 millimeter. So let me get my millimeter gauge, you guys. And I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to measure this thread. Can you see how the thread is a 0.8? So
Mhm.
it's not the size, like if a number 8 wouldn't necessarily be for 8 millimeter beads, it's the size of the thread and how it relates to the hole, right? So this is 0.8 millimeter. This
Mhm.
size 4, this is actually a 0.6 millimeter. The number 6, the thread is a 0.7 millimeter. So this number doesn't have to do with the bead size. It has to be with the hole size.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's what you have to look at, not the number of the thread corresponding with the number size of the bead, if that makes sense. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just tie that overhand knot like we would for a pearl knot,
And
because just,
are you about 2 inches down? I
well, I'm going to
mean,
start
you
it.
can take it
Oh,
out.
I was just going to test
Yeah,
it, but should
that's
I
true.
start it on this?
No, but if you know that you want to use that thread, then do
Right,
that practice knot about 2 inches from the end, that's all.
about
So
2 inches down. So that's about 2 inches right here. Okay,
the nice
and
thing
then,
about the griffin is it's very forgiving, is that it's
mm-hmm,
just coarse enough that if you don't tighten it too tight,
right, it's
it's
easy to get
possible.
out.
Yeah, it's fairly easy. So,
So here's that one. So I'm going to tie another strand, another knot. And Ellen was asking, is this griffin silk sturdy enough to withstand the use for the mala? And I would say yes, for sure.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I've knotted malas, that it depends on how, active you are with your mala and how much you use it, but you could have to re-knot it, once a year if you use it 5, 6, 7 times a day. But if you use it occasionally or you wear it as a necklace, um, it's gonna last for a really long time.
Yeah. And you can see that this size 8 gives you a nice sized bead and it's ready to go.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now, Janice, if I were starting this, how would I begin it then?
You'd actually start it without a knot. I'm
Correct,
sorry.
right.
You would put a piece of ta okay, so
Piece of tape on.
let's take
So,
the beads off, let's take the knots
yep,
out.
I'm
Um,
going to just take this out. I
or
threw
you've got
my,
enough you could cut it off, Kate. You really do have
I
enough.
do, I do.
Um,
Um, we can also just right here pick this out real quick like, unless I lose patience immediately. One of the things, you guys, if you are cutting, I learned this the hard way with a customer's beads at the bead shop when I was restringing them. I don't know, Janice, if you remember this day, but it was that fancy lady with those amethyst beads, and I was reknotting her piece, and I cut the knot on the knot instead of between the knot
yeah,
and the bead. When you cut apart your knotted necklace, get your really sharp wire cutter or something and wedge it in and cut between the knot and the hole, not on the knot. Because if there's any knot remaining and you go ahead and pull that bead off of the thread, that knot is going to lodge itself
right.
inside that bead hole, and no power on this earth, unless you re-drill it where it probably won't survive,
Yeah,
will you be able to clear that hole. So be very careful when you're unknotting and pulling your thread out of your beads or pearls. Thankfully, that lady was very gracious, and we
mhm,
had to shorten her necklace anyway. But gosh, that's a lesson from 1992 that I'll never
yeah.
forget.
Um, yeah, I have found that flush cutters are actually the
Hmm.
best cutter because you can put the flush side right up
Right,
against the
wedge it.
bead
right
and
in
then
there.
kind of, you're not tight and it's not completely tight, but you wiggle your flush cutter and you loosen the space. You open up the space between the knot and the pearl or the gem, and then you
Hmm.
go in and cut, and then your knot
And slice
stays
it off.
on
Yeah.
the other side, and you're not bringing your knot into the bead,
Yeah.
which is just heartbreaking.
And yeah, especially when you're doing it in front of a customer. Oh God.
I know.
Everyone
So
was so
I know there's going to be a question, because there always is, about the kinks in
right.
the griffin. They go away. You're not going to see them. Don't worry about them. I also, if you want to stretch it to like pull on it, but I don't know, Kate, maybe you do this, but I don't do really much of anything, because the kinks you're not going to see. And then when I push my knot down, I'm kind of pulling on the griffin as I go. And that's where I'm
Yeah.
stretching it. But I know
Well,
some
let me
people
show
do.
you guys real quick what I'm going to put us back on the thing
Okay.
here, and I'm going to put myself up. There we go. One of the things that I do when because the griffin, you can see it's
Yeah.
a little wrinkly. What I'll do is I'll do like my arm exercises, and I'll take this and I'll kind of pull it like this,
Mhm.
and I'll just wrap it around my hands and pull it across like this. Some people weight it down too a little bit. One of the things that we learned from Alice Howe at our bead retreat is that you can also use a small hair straightening iron
Mhm.
and iron this flat a little bit, which is nice. That mini flat iron. One of the things that someone asked, and I'm gonna put this up real quick. Andy said in your original directions from 2014, the silk is good, but it's not as strong as the Ceylon, which is um, a nylon cord. I think what you meant by that, and you can clarify
It
what you
was
meant.
okay. In fact, I have it right here. Let me just get it. I believe, Andy, what I was talking about was the silk on spools, which
Hmm.
is not the same as the griffin. I'll show you. Um, we're going to, aren't we going to start carrying this again, Kate?
Yeah, let me get you in there,
Kate had
JP.
a
There we
very,
go.
Kate has a very clever idea, and of course, no one is surprised. Um, we used to carry it in all different colors, and it comes in
I
different
know I have my
sizes.
stash. I've got my
Yeah,
stash right here.
and
Always near
now,
me, right here.
oh, and now they're not they're not making it in as many colors, because
Mm-mm.
most people are just using the griffin. They're not using the old-fashioned silk, which feels like a negligee. Honestly, it does. It's just delicious. You absolutely must use it double. You can't use it single like you can the griffin.
No.
The griffin is also, it's a twisted, it's two ply, and the silk is the silk like this, um, actually a single ply.
Hmm.
Good Abroad used to make it, and then they sold, I guess they sold it to Champion, and now they really only offer it or in like in white and black and maybe navy. So Kate is going to teach us how to dye it, and I
Yeah.
can't wait. I know it kind of just makes sense, just throw it in some tea or something, but I think it would be fun to make it like different colors. You and Emily could dye it like,
Yeah, because that old school Gouda Broad, and I have mine right here, this
yeah.
old school one. This is what, and I have such a stash from the days of bead shops, the bead shop, and then the days of my own store. When I restore pearls, this is my thread of choice because
Mhm.
it is, I'm restoring, right? I love this thread on the spool. So you'll see us bring this back. Actually, we're also testing some needles for it. We've got some
Mhm.
new needles that are coming down the pike as
Mhm.
well. Um, and there is nothing easier to dye in the world than silk. It
Yeah.
takes color so very easily. But you can see, and if you go to Beadshop under our learning resources, we have something, a thread compendium. It's called a Stittionary. We talk about threads. And Janice, you also talk about threads, funnily enough, in your Tricks to Laddering handout.
Oh, there's like
Um,
5 pages about
Pages of
thread.
thread info on there. So
Yeah.
you can see the difference. The griffin is that doubled over ply over the needle. Here, with the silk on the spool, you have to double it over the needle yourself. But
Mhm.
we'll come back to this. It seems
Yeah.
like everyone is super excited
Yeah.
about that, JP. So
Yeah.
what I did was I took my griffin silk
Mhm.
here and I put a little tape flag on it, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's what we do to hold that on. And then I string on 4 beads. Am I right? 4?
Yes, but you have to test them. You have to
Mhm.
test these 4 beads. Um, they have to be able to go up you have to be able to go up and back down through without it
Mhm.
jamming. So you
Mhm.
may go through multiple beads until you find them. Really, it you don't want it to be difficult. You want
Right.
like, if
You
you have
want
to
it to slide
force
on.
it, try a few more because when you get to the end, you're gonna find that if it jams, if the thread curls at
Right.
all, you wanna make it as easy as possible, and so that's one
Right.
of the signature things that I do to pick my
Yeah, see,
thread.
this one slides on
Great.
really, really easily.
Okay, so
Now,
that's one.
one of the things, you guys, while I'm testing this, I'll also talk to this. We also carry a bead reamer at Bead Shop. It is not a a motorized one, it's a handheld one. And the handheld reamer has a little diamond tip to it.
Mhm,
If you use the reamer to ream out your beads, and see how I'm just doubling it back over and then pulling this through, see how it just
mhm,
is coming through very easily. Um, if you're using the reamer, you want to use it wet. So you want to dip the tip of the reamer, dip the bead, and very gently ream on one side and ream on the other side. You'll be able to open up the hole on these beads just a touch, but you want to be really careful because you can also bust the bead. So with the reamer, it is meant to enlarge a bit, but not a huge amount, but make sure to use it wet. That diamond tip needs water in order to work effectively. So,
Another alternative, Kate, for
mhm,
this section on a project is to use a different bead. Is
right, and
just go,
you
"Okay,
use
these
that,
pearls won't work. I
right,
will use something else on both sides of the closure that I can go up and back." Or,
right.
in more advanced knotting, we also talk about using a thinner thread so that I will do anything in the world before I use a bead reamer. I just um, so one another alternative is using a thinner thread for these 4 beads and then adding a thread afterwards for a thicker knot.
Mhm,
But w
yeah,
I think we're gonna have to do pearl knotting in, like, 6 classes or something, 6
yeah,
episodes.
no, exactly. There's so much in
There
the
is.
nuance of pearl knotting,
Yeah,
and as we all know, knotting is the backbone
yeah, exactly.
of jewelry design.
Yep,
Okay, so here are my 4
your
beads,
4
JP, that
beads.
I put on.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you wanna add another one and knot after that.
Okay. So I'm going to get my board here and I want to talk to you really just quickly, you guys, about the different knotting techniques that you can do. Okay, I'm going to show you two today, though there are, Janice and me and Emily, we all kind of
Yeah.
approach our knotting a little bit differently.
Yeah.
The thing, and I'm going to do a couple here. The thing that's the same about all of these knots, okay, is that it's just a simple overhand knot. Okay, so that means that where I'm moving these four down like so, I'm sliding this one up against the tape. I've got that 2 inch, maybe even a little bit longer of a tail. And I'm coming in and I'm making a loop and I'm just simply passing all of that thread through the loop. Okay, so here's my knot. You can see that that knot is formed, right? The trick is getting the slack out of this knot and getting that knot to sit right up next to that bead hole. Okay,
You're not going
now
to do a
when
knot
you
now, are you? Are you, Kate?
oh no, actually you're right. I don't need to do it now. I need to do it after the fourth one. Sorry,
Yeah,
JP. Thank you.
that's okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Because what Janice means is you come back in once the mala is complete and you knot it off here, right, Janice?
Mm-hmm. And you knot
That's
with
what
your
we're doing.
tail on the other
Right,
side.
on the
Yeah,
other side, right. So we're going to add, do I knot right here at the end of the
you
four?
can. I mean, if you wanted, you can, yes, go. No, no, don't. Sorry.
No.
I
So
want
I'm going to add another,
add another bead, but it doesn't have to have a big hole.
okay, gotcha.
Just regular, and then knot
So
after
let me
that.
do that. Yeah. So let me go ahead and add, whoops, that one fell on the ground. Let me get another one and put that in there. Now, as I was saying, I'll just tie this knot quickly because I showed you previously. You come in, you make your loop, and you slide that thread through. Okay, so there's your knot, and it's all a loop that's right here. Okay, so now we need to get this loop tight up against this thread. So what you can do is you can just kind of scoot, for the lack of a better term, that knot up with your knotting tweezers. Put one leg inside that loop and one leg on the outside. Bury the tips of your tweezer into your velvet board, leaving the tweezer slightly open and using that to push that knot right up against that bead hole. Take it out. The knot is still fairly loose, and I push the knot towards the bead and pull this thread towards me to make up that knot. And again, this is the size 8 um, Griffin silk.
And you
Now,
saw
another
Kate,
way,
you were pulling.
what,
You just mentioned, and you pull on your thread. You're pulling to
hmm
tighten the knot. That's where I say you're stretching your silk.
yeah, this does add some
Yeah,
stretch to it.
yeah.
Exactly. As you're pushing this knot away and
Mhm.
pulling this thread towards you, it does, you can feel that thread start to get a stretch.
Yeah.
Now, what you can do, and this is the way a lot of very traditional um, pearl knotters, how they tighten their knots, you simply use the next bead as the pusher. So there's my loop. Here comes my bead. It's coming down. Now, you need to be very careful not to let that knot jump over this bead. But if I pull it up and I capture, can you see how the knot is captured between these two beads? As I tighten, I push that bead towards its mate and pull the thread down. Okay, and you can see that knot is right in place. And you can give it an extra little tug, right? But that's it. So it just depends on how you want to do this. In Janice's pearl knotting handout that we have online that's archived from when Janice used to teach it, at our brick and mortar, um, we do it by hand,
No
which is
tool.
how our friend, no tools at all, which is how our friend Rita Lee taught us
Hmm.
how to do that. And so can you see how that just comes in? Okay. So it just depends. Maybe Janice, we will do, it would be fun to do a whole
Hmm.
series of the pearl knotting. So you're going to go along and go along. And let me get this guy here. And you can see where we're at in this piece. So we continue, 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 and then you get to one of your station beads,
Right.
correct?
Right.
And the color that I'm using, this is the actual color name is I think it's the cornelian color, right? Isn't it? Is that what I'm using? Let me see.
Cornelian, I think. Oh,
Cornelian is what it's called.
are you talking about
Yeah,
the
this color.
griffin?
The griffin, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Millie is asking a question, and it's a good question here. Do you want tight taut stringing all the way through the piece, no air, or do we want a little bit of air? What's your take on this, JP?
You want them secure. You don't, your goal is, in this case, is not to have space between the knots. Um,
Right, we don't want them to move around too
right.
much.
What happens sometimes if they're, they could be like too tight, is that if you roll your knotted beads along like a wool blanket or along, I like wool or even terry cloth, and you roll it, the knots will eventually relax. Rarely
Hmm.
have I seen knots so tight that they never, uh, that they remain like kind of tense, and they don't
Hmm.
flow right. But that is a rarity. But we are trying. Our goal is to get the knot close up against the bead.
Yeah.
Now, are you working on this, or are you going to work on
Well,
the
I'm going to go
sample
back to the other one, but I'm just going to show that we do 10 and then
10?
we put on our station bead, right?
Right.
And then we're going to move to that other one.
Okay. And
Here's
I
that
want you to
station bead.
check, Kate, when you do the station bead, I want you to first check how the knot looks next to the oval bead, because I think the holes are bigger.
Yeah.
So string that on a
So
second, and
on this one, you've got the knot there.
mhm. I might have done 2 knots though. It's possible.
Maybe. Let's take a look.
Let's see if the knot gets lost. No, it's okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe on this side it might get, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just
So,
a little trick of putting a second knot over the first
yeah,
one,
so
which is
so let's talk about that because
okay.
again, sometimes these beads they're different. The
Mhm,
hole size on one end might be, see how that one's kind of big?
mhm.
That
Yeah,
one's a real big hole size, and this one is kind of more of a regular hole size. It's a little hard to see. So sometimes with this size 8 thread is pretty big, so I don't think you'll have to worry. But you could do a double knot if you needed to make that knot a little bit bulkier. So you can see I've gone through once. You can, if you want, simply go through twice and pull that knot. It'll see how it's looping through once and twice, and you can tighten it up. I won't tighten it all the way, but you can see how it would make a little bit of a fatter knot there. What Janice also sometimes does is she'll tie one knot. Let me see if I can get this here. She'll tie one knot. Let me get this undone.
I think especially for beginner knotters to do a double knot with this single thread, it can be very frustrating. And so,
Yeah.
um,
So here's my first knot.
right, yeah, just put it right up against there.
Mm-hmm.
And now make another one, and your goal is to have this one closer to the bead than the first knot.
Right. So what I'm going to do, let me undo this here real quick. And so for these malas, Janice, you do knot between every bead. I mean, you don't have to if you don't want to, but the look that we're going for is something that's knotted in between each bead. Let me
I
get
think
this
it
down
really
there.
depends. I'm going to let you finish this first.
Let's see
So
if I
you
can
just kind of
get
bring
that
it
knot.
over.
Yeah, bring it over and pop it up there.
Yeah.
So see how it's made kind of, the knot's a little funny looking, but you're never gonna see it,
Well,
right?
if you
And
have
so
a bead with a big hole, then that knot will more than likely, much of it gets soaked up in the hole of the bead.
in
But
the hole, right, right.
yeah, yeah.
So
So,
I'm gonna just put this next one on. Someone also asked about the knotting tool. Can we use, it's that beading tool by Beadalon. You know, I'll be really super frank. I love Beadalon for a lot of things, but that knotting tool just really isn't in my wheelhouse. I find, for me personally, and I've just been knotting um, for so long, that I find that that knot just doesn't, or that tool just doesn't sink the knot right where I want it.
mm,
Whoops, right where I want it to be. So, but you try out what works for you, whatever knotting method you use. And if that works and if that achieves your knot, your desired result, then go for it. So see, here we go. You can see that
mm.
we've got this knot here, this knot that's just maybe a little bit bigger because we double knotted it because that hole was a little bit bigger. And then we've gone back to that single knotting technique there.
If
Okay.
you had like wooden beads, Kate, that you wanted to use, they
Mm-hmm.
have really large holes. Being able to
Mm-hmm.
put in another knot there so that it keeps it in place is
Mm-hmm.
really helpful. But to answer
Mm-hmm.
the question about do you need to knot between every bead, I have seen malas, especially wrist or pocket malas, where they're done on a chain and the beads
Mm-hmm.
are loose.
Mm-hmm.
They just
Yeah, the
roll.
traditional Greek
Yeah,
worry beads are
yeah,
that way. I have a few from my granddad. I love them.
yeah.
Um, they're great. So you can see here, we just continue on.
Mhm.
So let's go ahead and switch gears from this piece to that other one. I'm just going to give you this little tip here. And you saw how Janice sent that one to me. She keeps these little cards, and you can just wind your thread back up on these little card spools so that you won't have a tangled mess
Mhm.
when you are ready to go. And Janice put a little piece of tape there, so I'm going to do the same thing to just keep this in place. So now I'm ready to put this aside so I don't have a big tangled mess. So let's take a look at, if I can, this of course my table is a crazy mess here. Now we're going to switch gears with thread size
Mhm.
and with the bead. So you can see that Janice started, here's where she started up here, and she's got that large hole flower bead, and then she's got her beads here that aren't knotted that we're going to finish it off with the knotting. But she's come along, knotted, 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 and now we're getting to our disc.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look. I'm going to slide this back underneath actually, so we've got a little bit of contrast of color. So now it's time to add that center disc on, and I want to just show you this so you can see where we are. So JP, you want to talk me through this here?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, everyone. I turned off my phone, but I didn't turn it off on my computer.
I know, on the computer. Yeah.
So before you come to the disc, you're going to put a knot after that last bead to keep that one in place. There should be, I hope there's a knot there.
There is. It's very
Yeah.
tiny, but you can see it.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
right there.
And then I do what Kate says, she calls it lashing. Lash the project down to a design board. And I want to make a series of macrame. I've secured it to a design board. And then I want to make a series of square knots that will allow me to go over and under, add the tassel if I have a tassel, and then go back up, and then secure the macrame to itself where I started. You could put just a drop of glue on the griffin where you start your macrame, but you really don't need it because when you're done, you're going to knot over it and it's really not going to slip and slide. You just start with a length of fine weight underneath the griffin and then macrame. We've got the nice little skill builder. I'd be surprised if anyone doesn't know from us the square knot because we probably use it every week.
We
love
do
it so
this
much.
macrame square
Yeah.
knot. I'm getting my board here. So
Okay.
what the length that, and this length, you guys, here is going to vary, okay? Because it really depends on like the size of your disc, the thickness of the disc, right? So I'm going to come in and, like Janice said, she used the fine seal-on, and that center cord is that silk, and she's just macrameed down. So I'm gonna grab all my threads here, and we're gonna test it out and see. Because what you want to do, Janice, is do that whole length that you need, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And you need
let's,
to slip on your tassel
yeah,
before you go back up. Yep.
yeah. So let me get all of these guys together. And then the tassel color, I should check. I know you've put it all together, and I've now have a big
I
pile of
can go back
beads.
and I can
Tell
go
me
back.
which one to use. Is it
Okay.
the brown one that I'm using for this?
I
I think
think
maybe.
so. Hold on. Yes. The
Okay,
chocolate
the
or
chocolate. So
woodland brown. Yes.
woodland brown. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go through the center with all of these threads, and we're going to go slide that disc up because this definitely has a front and a back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me get down a little closer so you guys can see that. So here's my macrame. Let me measure this macrame length for you just so you guys have an idea, but your results will vary. This is about 2¼ inches so far. Okay, so this just slides in right there. And remember how I said I wanted that disc to be oriented so that dark part is at the bottom. So I'm just going to try and remember that when I do this. Then, Janice, we put in the tassel. So I'm
Yeah,
going to
I first
gather,
before you even put that on though, Kate, I would measure
huh?
and just see if you need to do more macrameing. I think I might have
Oh,
listed it so
sure.
you have to do a little more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
actually I do, just a little
yeah.
bit. Okay, so let me go ahead and do this real quick. We're doing okay on time, so I'm
So
just going to set this
the
up.
secret is that the length of the macrame is going to be at least double the length of the disc. So if the disc is
Mm-hmm.
1.5 inches, you're going to have
Right, right, of course.
3 inches plus a little because you're going through, you're kind of making a little bit of a turn. You've got to account for the thickness of the disc.
Right.
You just have to figure that it's at least double the length of your pie disc. So,
So I'm going to use my clamper there. I'm going to turn this here. We'll get this strand out here, this strand out here, this strand in the center. I think
mm,
you can see it actually, even though it's gray on gray. Let's get that other clamper down here. Okay. And Christine Whitney from Whitney Studios says that mala is Sanskrit for garland,
mm,
which I did not ever really know that, and I like knowing that.
mhm.
So
Thank you,
thank you,
Christine.
Christine. So this, I'm going to slide my little strand, my little spool under there, and I saw that Janice ended her macrame on that side. So I'm going to just come in and do, I don't know, probably it needs to be close to an inch. I'm going to go at Kate's speed here.
Okay.
Um, so Janice, you could use, you chose fine for this
Yeah.
macrame. Um, could we use other
Sure.
strands, other threads?
You could use a different color. You could use uh, the regular. Um, it's just it's really how thick you want this macrame to be. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the micro would have been a little too skinny. I thought that the fine weight over this size griffin just looked the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I use this actually also with the heavier, the size 8. And if you take
Mm-hmm.
those out, you'll be able to see the difference with your core
Right,
thread
because
being heavier or
the
lighter.
right, the base thread
Yeah.
is a little bigger, and I'll
Mhm.
show you that right here. You guys can see that kind of in the corner. Now, you could also use this with the Chinese knotting cord. You could do
Mhm.
this portion, right?
Mhm.
You could also, pardon me, if you wanted to make your own tassel, you could do that with the Chinese knotting cord. Um,
Absolutely.
it would be very pretty. I think I probably need to do another tassel making show, maybe with the CKC. If you use, like, if you decide to use beads maybe that are glass instead of the stone, the check glass beads normally have a hole that's a little bit larger, and
Mhm.
you could use a single strand of Chinese knotting cord to knot those if you wanted to. Um, Also, if you have some beads that have larger holes, you could use the point 0.5 leather to knot them. Um, it just really depends on the the overall look that you're going for,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Uh, as you say so eloquently, you do you. And
Yeah.
it's really, you could use something where your threads are, you could, like if you're using those really fun new check glass beads that are, dogs or flowers or
Right,
elephants.
those the table cut strands that we
Yeah,
have.
those would probably, I'm just thinking, because I'm designing something right now with some of those. I'm thinking of the whole size. you could use like a 0.5, I think, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or a point, maybe a 4. The 0.4 would work in terms
Mm-hmm.
of using it if you wanted to knot with Chinese knotting cord.
Right.
Um, I think malas in glass are the new future.
Yeah. Well, we
I
just
know.
love the new glass beads so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Um, and stones are so, they're getting harder and harder to get,
Mhm.
honestly.
The thing
So
with a
this,
mala is
mhm,
if you're seriously going to use it on to meditate, then you have to think about what the coatings are because
mhm,
you can't really use, glass beads that have, luster coatings and expect to, in a year or 2, that the coating hasn't worn off in
right,
some
right.
places. So that's the beauty
They'll
of
just
the
show
stones. Yeah.
the passing of time on
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Um, there's a good question from Julie, and she says, "Are the edges of the glass beads sharper than gemstone beads?" And no, they're not usually. Glass beads usually are finished in some way that the holes usually, and I'm saying on the pressed check glass beads, sometimes if it's a lampwork bead or a wound glass bead, the hole can be a little bit sharp, but not usually. Okay,
I agree with that.
so here's here's my disc, and I'm
Mhm.
gonna go through, and I think that we are at about the right length. So now, when you close this macrame up, Janice,
Mhm.
I'm going to take a look at the other. Let me just get this through here. I'm going to take a look at what happens at the top here.
Okay, we have to put the tassel on too.
Yeah, I'm going to. I'm just going to double check and make sure that this fits. So see here how it comes, and we are
You're
good to
good to
go.
go. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when do you add the charm, Janice? Do we do it now or do you do it later?
I do it later.
Okay. So the charm, you want to make sure that you've got your jump ring and your charm. And you can see where Janice has just added it on the on the macrame just here in front, right in front of the tassel. So you could add it now, but there's no real reason to because it'll kind of flop around as you're working with it. And this should be loose enough that you can get your jump ring underneath
Yeah,
and close it up. The only time where you would add something, let's say that you wanted this piece maybe to be stationary like this and not add a jump ring, you'd come in and you'd add this at this point here so it would be all closed up, if that makes sense. But
yeah.
if you're adding a jump ring,
I
you
think,
can do it later.
yeah. Unless there is a really good rationale for something stationary, I think almost
Hmm.
everything that's going to hang off this needs that jump ring or needs that
So it
elbow.
has movement, right?
Yeah, or it loses grace like awfully
Hmm.
fast.
Hmm. So
Um,
let's get all of this together. I'm going to get my two
can't wait
strands.
to see how this
What's that?
looks. I can't wait to
Yeah,
see how this looks because the picture jasper, I just love that it's got charcoal in it and brown in
yeah,
it. And it's sort of a testament to you really can put any colors together
yeah.
and
I
get
like it a
something
lot.
nice because it's um
I'm going to send that griffin through.
yeah.
All of this comes together.
Mhm.
Now, we don't want to make this section too tight. We want just enough clearance that this tassel is going to sit
Yeah,
kind of
you
at the
can when
bottom.
you can figure it out once you get it through to the top and
Yeah.
tighten it or loosen it. It
And
looks
I'm just going to
good.
kind of fold this in half and see if I can just push it right through that hole. Maybe. There we go.
We need to do live shows that are like 10 hours.
A marathon. Like that time you filmed me at Bead and Button when I made
Yes.
that piece for 3 hours.
Yes, that was so fun.
It's still on the website, you guys. You can still watch that on the YouTube channel. That was fun, that embellishment project. So see here how on the side, how the this is going to kind of sit there on the bottom,
Mhm.
and this is good to go. Really nice choice with the gray, Janice, I
Oh,
think.
thank you.
So now to close this off, it looks like you have just come in, you've brought the macrame up and around,
Mhm.
and you've closed it with some macrame. Now
Mhm.
you could, if it's kind of tight in there, but if you made it a little bit longer, you could also silk wrap that, right? If you wanted.
Yeah, but you don't, I
But
mean,
I
you
think,
could just macrame right over it. It's just,
yeah, I'm
um,
just going to macrame. So I'm going
yeah.
to do it with these ends. So let me show you how I'd set all of this up. And this is where this has a definite front and a back to this mala. So I'm going to try and keep the nice smooth portion that I'm doing. That's going to be the front. And I'm going to get this, I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to macrame around the back of this. So now I have to get really good, nice, even macrame. I'm going to go ahead and connect this down. So I had my little piece of, there it is, my little thread here that I'm going to put this through. And we're just going to bring this up. Let me raise this up here. Let's get that right to the top of the board. And clip it. And then we want to just make sure, see how this is going to come around there, tighten it down, bring it around, and I'm going to tighten this one to the board. And then I also need to do this center strand on the board so that everything is snug. And just kind of, I'll pull the camera up so you guys can see everything. Let me just make sure that everything is on here. So see what I've got? I've got my piece of string that's holding this right underneath the tassel and clamped. Here's where I'm going to macrame. Here's my strand coming down. The strand is clamped, and this center strand of the griffin is also clamped. Okay.
Kate, can you push the disc closer to the tassel to give
Yeah, I'm
yourself
going to
a
do
little
that. It
more room?
wasn't, yeah, it
Yeah,
wasn't
there you go.
quite, yeah,
There
it
you go.
wasn't quite, I knew I had to make a little bit of an adjustment there before I started. It needs to go just like this, where you start the macrame, it needs to start like right at the the edge of where the disc is.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And then you just macrame around. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to start it. And after you do a couple of the stitches, see it goes around, then it has to go under everything and come on up and then tighten down right in the space there. Now, once you do a couple, everything will kind of tighten down. So you have to wrestle with it just a little as this is coming around. This is where if you intentionally made this length maybe just a hair longer,
Mm-hmm.
might be a little bit easier for you to deal with. But now I'm going to undo it, and I'm just going to make sure that I've got enough room here. Yep, that looks good. And I'm just going to do a couple more.
Now, would you put any glue on these last couple of knots?
Yeah, that's a good. I was just thinking that. It's like, well, you kind of have to be thinking forward a little bit.
Uh-huh.
So before I knot maybe the last 4 knots, I'll come in and I'll add um my GS.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't use Zap on this, you guys, because the Zap, when it dries stiff,
Yeah.
right? So we especially don't want anything stiff on the top of this disc. We want that movement. So I'm just going to come in, add a drop right there, put the lid back on before it goes everywhere. Takes me just a second here to get that little, the struggle
Mm-hmm.
of
I
the
got
braid.
such a dressing down from my daughter, Ashley. I gave her a tube of this to use on something.
Uh-huh.
She was, she's not a beater. She doesn't make jewelry, and she was on my case. How do you sell this? It's impossible to get the top back on. I
That's so
couldn't
funny.
do it. And I said, yeah, but it's a special glue.
Yep,
Oh,
that's right.
I
There we
said, "Do you
go. And
need
I'm
me to
gonna,
come over and put the top on for you? It's
right, that's
only
so
15,
funny.
you're only 15 minutes away. That's why I
Right?
moved
Just hold it
here."
upright until I get there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now I'm gonna just come in and do that last knot
Yeah.
right there. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So you can see right here, I can probably even get one more in there, but can you see how that goes almost seamlessly right around there? Looks
It's
good.
beautiful.
And then what I'll do, and I'm not going to do it for this one, I'm going to let this really sit, but I'm going to go ahead and really let this dry completely because I want to continue on to come out and do the rest of my knotting. But I'll
Mhm.
come in later with the thread burner and burn these away, or you can clip them. Okay.
Now, Kate, I don't know what you have planned for Friday. Do you want to finish this on Friday and show the
Yeah, I think
again?
that's a really good place to revisit. I think it's a good place to stop for this one because I want to get the rest of this done here
Mhm.
so that then we can address the closure here.
Now,
Um,
are you going to be okay if I can't join you on Friday?
yes, I believe so.
Okay. Okay. You know how to do this.
Yes, I do.
You
I
do.
do.
You know how to do this.
And um, so for that, I know we could just sit here and do this all day.
I
Okay.
know. That's what I'm saying.
So let me just line all of these up so you guys can see them. Some last looks here. And then I'll also check in with you on Friday. You guys will close this up. And I want to check in with you where I'm at on our loomed project. I thought I had it sitting here that I could flash you, but I think it's actually across the room. The loomed necklace project also will check in on both of those things because I think you're going to love where it's going.
I'm excited. I've promised my grandson I would take him rail fanning, and school is out on Friday, so
Yeah, no
I'm
worries.
sorry.
So here we've got this. We're all set to go.
Okay.
Okay. So on Friday, we're going to talk about, I'll have this other side strung. For this, just to start it so you guys know, I'm just going to come in. I'm going to bring my next bead. I bring that bead down and I knot. That's
And if
that's
you
it.
can remember, it's not essential, but put a knot before the first bead you put on.
The first bead.
Yeah,
Okay. So I'm going to
so
do that.
that
I put my
what
knot right there
yeah,
and
because
then
what you're
I would
doing is you're giving it a little we're trying to
a
keep the beads from
little bit of space.
cracking
Yeah.
against each other or
Yeah.
against the disc, and the knot is just that little extra bit of security.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that's it. So also, you guys, I want you to keep an eye out. On Thursday, we're doing let me actually get us on here. So Janice, I'm going to put all of us on here now.
Okay.
On Thursday, I'm going to take this out and do this. So on Thursday, we have a new product drop coming, and
Mm,
it has to do with some of the things you are working on, um, which is going to look great, I think. Some of your new,
I'm excited.
the new piece you're working on.
Mhm.
We've got some new, those table cuts that you guys love so much. That's dropping. And we also have, I think you guys are going to love them, and I'm going to use them in a broadcast soon. We have these really wonderful little findings packs that are coming down the pike.
Very
So
cool.
make sure and check your emails because we're going to have a photo of what Janice is working on, the new three new colors of table cuts, and these great findings packs from Beadalon that you've seen me use these. I actually use them in um, the challenge, the Beadalon challenge that we did a while back. Okay, so I think you guys will really find these in handy, and we'll be using them in a project coming soon.
I
So
think
on
they're
Friday,
great. I just wanna say, I think those little
sure,
findings are really great for, you're traveling, you're going on a trip, you want a clasp, you want some ends, you need a little bit of chain, you need a jump ring, and everything is in that little packet. It's just
yeah, it's super handy.
yeah,
I love them, and they
yeah,
come in. We have them in right now, 4 different ones. So check your newsletters for that.
yeah,
So on Friday, we'll revisit this mala. I'll show you how to do the closure, and I'll give you the update on where we are in my loomed necklace. And then that loom necklace, we'll finish that up on the free tip Friday, I think that's following. But check your newsletters because our final schedule is there. Sunny asked real quick, and I'll answer this question, what the device is that I hold my phone in. So when we film these broadcasts, and it's no secret, I love to share this with you guys. This is, I do my overhead with the iPhone, and I have a clamping arm. You can find them right on Amazon. It's a phone holder that clamps, but that I can push down and pull up like this. So I do that manual, all of that
the
there, but
production
it makes
team.
it I'm my own production team, so that makes it easy. So, Janice, I will also get these notes scanned, and I will either have Drea link them. We'll probably link them right in the project. Okay, so you guys stay tuned for that. It'll
Thank you.
probably be later this week. Okay. And I think, Janice, you're going to take a sneak peek of that really cool piece that you're making and stick it over into the group. We would
Yes,
love it.
yes, yes.
And before we go, Janice, someone is asking about your earrings. We were
Yeah.
talking about your earrings. Um,
That's the
that is
next disc
also,
project.
yeah, it's a disc.
Can you see them?
Yeah, they're really
It's a
great.
disc. It's a carnelian disc. I believe these are 20 millimeter. And then
Yeah,
I
the smaller
glued,
ones.
yeah, and we're gonna make, I call them Leslie Stahl earrings from 60 Minutes. And as I get older, I get those Buddha lobes. They get Buddha lobes on steroids. And so covering them with a bigger earring and having a little drop is just perfect for
It's
me. So
fun.
we're gonna
It's
make that
nice.
this spring. We're gonna have some
Yeah, it's
Leslie
going to be
Stahl
good.
earrings.
And the tassels, I think,
They look
especially if you
great.
give the tassels a little bit of what you like to say is a haircut, these would be great for earrings. They're nice and light, or of course you can use them as pendants as well. So thank you so much, Janice, for
Thank
these wonderful
you.
words of wisdom
Oh,
and
and
these
thanks
great
everyone
projects.
for listening and putting up with, "Oh, I forgot what I was gonna say, and don't remember
Oh
what
no,
size I used," and
no, no, it's great. That's the beauty of going live. So I will see you guys on Friday, and Janice will be back. She's got another project
yep,
cooked up for next month, so we can't wait to see that one as well. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us. Of course, you can find all of the information on the project and the products from today's broadcast right on our website. Go straight to beadshop.com. If you're watching this on a later broadcast, click on projects and you'll find, or you can type Mala into the search box and they'll jump right up. Again, sign up for our newsletter to get the latest discounts, giveaways, and new products. We really have, for the first quarter, we've been working really hard to source and find some really great new things for you. So new things are coming down the pike. So make sure and sign up for that newsletter. And of course, you can find us on our social at beadshop.com on Insta. Join us at the Bead Table, our wonderful bead group over on Facebook. And if you're liking and watching us on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button so that people can find all of this wonderful beading content. So thank you so much, Janice, for everything. And
you.
I will see all you all on Friday, and you'll see Janice soon. Thanks so much, everybody.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye.